everyone, welcome to our video tutorial for this keyhole cat scarf that you can see Melba wearing here. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial. Please like, share and subscribe, and hope to catch you soon. Thanks. Bye. Okay, so for this project you'll need some yarn, and I'm going to use one of my go-to yarns. This is an 80% acrylic, 20% wool yarn. It's about a 4 weight, something like that. And I can use a 5mm hook with it. So I like a kind of a chunky look for my scarves. You can use any yarn you like. You could use, you know, summer yarn or winter yarn, and then you just need to match your hook to the yarn that you're using. You'll need some scissors to snip off your ends, a darning needle to weave in your ends, and a tape measure to measure the circumference of your cat's neck. Okay, so to make this keyhole scarf, you'll need to know how to slip knot onto your hook, how to make a chain, how to half double crochet in the back loop only, how to half double crochet into what I call the third loop of a chain. You'll need to know how to single crochet and how to weave in your ends. And before you weave in your ends, I'll show you a little invisible stitch that will just make your work nice and neat as you finish off. So let's get started. Okay, so to get started, please slip knot onto your hook, however you do that. Now, just to add some notes in here about sizing, so you can tailor the size of this scarf to any neck circumference. I'm going to offer you 3 sizes, a small, medium and large, and the small will fit so anywhere from about 19 centimeters up to about 22 centimeters. The medium will fit anywhere from 23 up to about 27. And the large should fit anywhere from about 28 up to about 31. So if you're making a small, you will chain to 35 centimeters. If you're making a medium, chain to around 38 centimeters. And if you're making a large, chain to around 40 centimeters. Now those numbers can be adjusted. You can chain more or less. If you have a very small cat, if you have an extra large cat, you could certainly chain more or less than those numbers. But those are the sizes that I'm going to offer you, but this is fully customizable to any neck circumference. You just use those numbers as a guide as a starting point. Okay, so I'll put all of those details on the video, and also you'll find a guide to neck circumference sizes for cats in the description box below the video. Okay, so I'm going to make a medium, so I'm going to go ahead and make a chain of 38 centimeters. So you make the chain length that you've worked out that you need for your cat's neck circumference. So when you measure the circumference, measure it, you know, relatively snugly, not too tight and certainly not loosely. So go ahead and make your chain, and I'll come back once I have my 38 centimeters for a medium size. Okay, so I have my chain of 38 centimeters. Now just wherever you're at, chain 2 extras as you're turning chain. And then we're going to locate the third loop of our chain, which will be working our half double crochets into for row 1. So if you look at your chain from the front, you have the V's. When you turn it over and look at it at the back, you've got this 1 loop at the back, and this is the loop we're going to be working into. Now this is optional, but I think you'll find that it'll be worth it in the finished result. You'll just have a slightly more symmetrical and neater result if you work into this third loop here. So yarn over, find the third chain from your hook and locate that third loop in the back, and you're going to place your half double crochet into that third loop in the back, and then into each third loop all the way along to the end of your row 1. Okay, so just to quickly run through a half double crochet, this is US terminology. yarning over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Okay, so continue along, working your half double crochets into that 3rd loop on your chain, and I'll meet you back at the end of your row 1. Okay, so I'm just placing my last half double crochet into that last chain in my row. So that's row 1 completed. Moving on to row 2, chain 2 as your turning chain, and turn your work. Now in that first stitch, place a half double crochet through both loops. And then from here we're going to work into the back loop only to create the little ridged effect on this scarf. It just gives it a little bit more texture and the ridges on the pattern there. So find the back loop of your stitch. So each stitch has those 2 loops. Just working into this back loop, ignoring the front loop, and working into the back loop. So yarn over, insert your hook into the back loop and complete your stitch. And then keep working into the back loop only in this row 2 all the way to the end. And then in the last stitch work into both loops. And that just gives the sides a little bit more structure. So in the first and the last stitches you'll be working into both loops. So go ahead and continue on in row 2 all the way to the end, working into the back loop only with your half double crochets, and I'll see you at the end of row 2. Okay, so I'm just coming up to my last 2 stitches here in row 2. And just a reminder, in that last stitch, work through both loops. And that completes row 2. Okay, so moving on to row 3, and we're going to add in the keyhole in row 3. So chain 2 and turn as before. Work your first half double crochet into both loops. And then depending on the size that you're making, so for a small, work your half double crochets into the back loop only for the next 5 stitches. For a medium, into the next 6 stitches, and for a large, into the next 7 stitches. Now if you're making other sizes outside of what I'm showing you here, then you can adjust that number. But I'm making a medium, so I'm going to insert half double crochets into the back loop only of the next 6 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one more 6. And then in the next stitch, work through both loops. Okay. So you have, this is the part that will be hanging down from the keyhole. Okay, so the size of the keyhole will depend on the size of your scarf. So if you're using a lightweight yarn, you may only want to chain 1 or 2. Here I'm going to chain 2 with this yarn. It's better to err on the side of caution and make your keyhole smaller than you think. You can double check and make sure that you're, or you know, I mean it's a little bit hard to double check at this point, but you can have an idea. So this is basically half the size of the scarf. So the scarf's going to be about double this and a little bit more. So it's just under half. So try to eyeball it and check that your scarf will fit through the keyhole. But I'm going to chain 2. And then in the skip 2, and then in the 3rd stitch I'm going to work my half double crochet through both loops. So I'll have this small keyhole. Now it might turn out to be a little bit small, But like I said, you're better to err on the smaller side than the larger side, because what will tend to happen is that your yarn will tend to stretch a little bit. And if the hole stretches too much, it won't hold. But with 2 there, I think it's actually going to be slightly small. Let's just double check. That fits through really easily. Actually, I'm going to run with that. I'm going to run with just chaining 2, because I'm going to assume that this yarn will stretch. But if you've got a yarn that doesn't have as much stretch as this one, perhaps chain 3. And if your scarf is larger, your yarn is a bit heavier weight than mine, then chain 3. But you'll have to kind of eyeball that a little bit and work out how big your keyhole needs to be. I think for this it's going to be fine, because you can also, remember, fold over the scarf to feed it through eventually. Okay, so probably for most the minimum's going to be 2. Maybe for some, if you're using a really fine weight yarn, it would be just chaining 1, skipping 1. But you know, for most it's probably going to be 2. For some it might be slightly larger. Okay, so once you've worked your stitch through both loops at the other side of your keyhole, you'll just continue on as your row 2 with half double crochets into the back loop only, and work all the way down until you get to your last stitch, and then you'll work through both loops. So I'll meet you at the end of your row 3. Okay, so I'm just placing my last half double crochet in row 3 into both loops. And then from here we've got 2 more rows. So they will just be repeat rows of what we've been doing. So chaining 2 and turn, half double crochet through both loops of that first stitch, half double crochet through the back loop only in the other stitches. Now I'll meet you once we get down to our chain, our keyhole chain, and we'll just work into the chain there, but I'll come back and I'll do that with you. And then we'll have 1 more row to complete after that. So I'll meet you just before I get back to the keyhole in this row number 4. Okay, so I'm just at my keyhole here, so I'll just put my my last half double crochet just into the back loop there, and now you'll just work into the chain. So just work into and across your chain, just working into the front of the chain this time, and then across. So nothing difficult there, just work into the chain rather than working into the chain space. And that just comes across the top of your keyhole there. Okay, so continue on, finish up your row number 4. And then go ahead and do 1 more row. So row number 5. And row number 5 is just a repeat of row number 2. So go ahead, I'll meet you at the end of row number 5. I'm just finishing off my row number 4 here. So I'll meet you at the end of row number 5, and we'll start on the border together. Now actually, just before I head off, what I will just get you to check here, just check that you can fold over your scarf, because you're getting close to the full width, and just make sure it does fit through your keyhole. Mine's going to fit through fine, and it's going to be nice and tight, so it'll keep the scarf nice and secure around the neck. So like I said, it might seem like you've done a really small keyhole, but I think you'll be happy that you erred on the side of a smaller keyhole. You know, as the scarf is worn, it will loosen. So yeah, mine's going to be fine there. So just perhaps do a quick double check there and finish your row 5, and I'll meet you at the end of row 5. Okay, just finishing off row 5 here. My last 2 stitches, and the last one into both of those loops. Okay, So that's the main part of our scarf done. So we're going to now, so that's this main part done. We're going to add the single crochet border just to tidy it up. Okay, so at this point you'll decide whether you want squared off corners, quite square corners, or more round corners. This one's got more rounded corners. Okay, so make that choice and then place another stitch, a single crochet, back into that same stitch that you've just finished on. And then along this edge, you're just going to place evenly spaced single crochets along the edge there. So it won't be super obvious where you put your stitches, but probably approximately one at the top of each row, maybe one or two extra, but just work some evenly spaced single crochets along the top. So my apologies, my camera just cut off, so I'm back now, but we're working those single crochets along the top of that short edge there. And then now you've decided whether you're making squared off edges or more round edges. So if you're making squared off edges, make sure you put 2 single crochets in the corner stitch. Okay, shall I? Yeah, I'm going to call that my corner stitch, so I'm going to add an extra one in there now. Okay. If you're making just the rounded edge, you just put 1 single crochet in the corners. And then from here, now you can work in this tail if you want to. I'm certainly going to. You'll just place 1 single crochet along that chain edge into each chain. Now it'll look, because we worked into that 3rd loop at the beginning, it'll look like little stitches, but they'll just be a little bit tighter than normal stitches. But it'll just make it look like you're working into stitches, and it just neatens off the finish of the scarf. So you can work over top of that tail as you move along. And then once you feel like you've worked in enough, you just snip off any excess. So I'm just going to work it through a little bit more. So yeah, these chains are just a little bit tighter than a normal stitch. So just work along. Now I'm going to keep going, so I'll do that off camera. So keep working along this long chain edge. Work to your 1 or 2 single crochets into your corners. Work across this other short edge and then along all the way along the second long edge. So I'll meet you when you get back to here, okay, our beginning point. Okay, so I'm back at the end of my round, my single crochet border around the edge. So if you're making your squared off corners, just remember to place your second single crochet in that corner. And we've got Melba here now disrupting my table. Okay, Melba. Okay, baby. And then just, I think she's going to be a bit distracting. There we go. And then just, rather than yarning over and pulling through, just pull out a big loop of your yarn. Take your scissors and snip that off. And now we're going to do that invisible stitch to finish this off nice and neatly. So take your darning needle and thread. And to make this invisible stitch, we're basically going to just sew a stitch. If Melba lets me do it. So locate your first stitch and you've got your last stitch, which is here. Okay, so we're going to sew a stitch between the two of them. So insert your needle underneath both loops of that first stitch. And that creates one side of the stitch. And then come back and down through the center of the last stitch. Okay, now try to bring your needle out on the back of your work. So actually I'm going to bring it down into this side because I think this is my back. And again, I apologize for Melba because she's disrupting my table. And that is essentially a sew-in stitch. So just pull it to the tension of the stitches around it, and then with this tail end, you'll just weave it into the back of your work. Okay, that's Melba. So just weave it into the back of your work, and I'll just have to rethread there. And yeah, go through the back, weave in that end, and you might want to go backwards and forwards a couple of times just to make sure it's nice and secure. So I'll go through a little bit more there, and then just don't double back where you came from, and weave back. And I'll just go through a little bit more, and I think that will be enough. And snip off any excess. And you're done. Okay, so this is where you will test whether you have your keyhole right for the final time. And I'm glad I've made that smaller keyhole, because now it is nice and firm. That's not going to go anywhere when it's around Melba's neck. And it also, what I like about the smaller keyholes, it kind of bunches up this one down here, and I think it looks kind of nice. So congratulations, well done. What a fun and simple scrap yarn project. So thank you so much for being here and for watching. As usual, I would love you to send your photos through of what you come up with, your creativity, the yarn you use. And so send those along to catventurous.community@gmail.com, or you can tag us on social media at catventurous.crochet. And you can find in the description box below all of the details of where you can find us on the web. So congratulations, and thank you very much for watching. Melba says thank you and catch you soon. Hi, sweet pea. Ready? Ready? Hi everyone, welcome to this video tutorial for our keyhole cat scarf. Okay, she's not very happy. Is that light a bit bright, baby? Yes, sweet pea. It's a bit bright. It's a bit cloudy outside. I know, so we have to use the light. Hi everyone. You ready? You ready?